any other memories of working in Clonbrock estate?
Yes, of course, the 3 day auction that was there was a fantastic event. We Paddy Kelly, who was the farmhand, the other last man to leave there, God rest him, he's dead now. He and myself spent a good few weeks preparing for this auction. There was a lot of people there from Christie's in London, and we had to look after those people, and we had to make their tea and look after them in every way that if they wanted to go here or go there through the estate or through the gardens, we had to bring them. There was a great story I'll always remember where in the documentary that was done by RT, Martin Burns, the great fiddler, was interviewed, and we took him down in the garden, and Patrick Gallagher interviewed him. And when Martin was a very young boy, he worked in Clonbrock Gardens. He found the gardens in a terrible state because they were dilapidated at that stage. And Martin was very disappointed on television. Now, it turned out when the documentary was shown that I was at a dinner dance in Hayden's Hotel in Ballinasloe, and everybody thought that I was asleep every day when the gardens were so run down, because Martin was so disappointed with the fact that they were run down. Of course, when Martin Burns was working in the garden, there would have been maybe the guts of 20 people working there at the time. It was in a great state of repair. It would have been there would have been specific people for specific jobs, such as there was 2 men assigned to just the pats alone, where they started at one point on the 1st of January and they finished at another point on the 31st of December. And when they went back after the Christmas holidays or whatever, they started again on the 1st of January, and it took them the full year to do the roads alone.
They had a programme of work.
They had a programme of work, yes. And it would have been, at that time, there would have been people living in the garden. The gardener himself, the main gardener, would have lived in the garden at that time. So
Can you remember who the main gardener might have been at any stage?
No, not really. Not really.
Now, I know Josephine Dermody said her father and her grandfather worked there as well. So
don't know. Johnny English would have known that now. Or it would be in the annals, of course. It would be in the history of Clonbrock, which is in the National Library. All those things were sent to the National Library at the time of the auction.
I'm sure there was sadness, as well as excitement on the day of the auction. Could you describe the feeling around
incredible
that day?
There was an incredible sadness for the Dillon Mahan family. I remember when Luke Dillon Mahan himself told me that morning, the first morning he told me, it was a tearjerker now. Because they didn't really want to leave, because the Dillons had been in Clonbrock for years and years, and they were brilliant. They were brilliant landlords as well. They were very good to their tenants, and at the time of the famine, it said that they actually killed the deer in the deer park to keep their tenants alive, for meat for the tenants, So they were good landlords. And there is a story as well where when one of I think it was the last Lord of Clonbrock, when he became 21, became of age, they had a massive meal in the what's called the dinner field, which is at the back of Kay Linner's house at the moment. They had a meal for all the main people in the area and all their tenants. And it said that the tenants wanted to lead Lord Clonbrock to believe that they were very poor, so they all came in their old rags to portray the fact that they were so poor. But it was supposed to be a fantastic day. I did see some of the receipts myself where there were so many loaves of bread and so many pigs on spits and so many barrels of Guinness got for the day. And it was a fantastic day that there was hundreds of people at it from the surrounding area.
It was a big 21st birthday party.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's why it's called the dinner field.
The dinner field.
Because they all had this big meal there, you know.
Magic.
Could you tell me more about the auction?
Now, the auction took 3 days. There were 3 days viewing and 3 days of an auction. There was a tremendous amount of people around for those. Actually, there was a tremendous amount of people around for at least 2 weeks before the auction, because people were coming and going, and it was a major event in the area because RT was present. You had many big auction or antique buyers. You had security people. It was like people just came for a look more than people buying. All the people in the area went to the auction, of course, but you just couldn't walk into the auction. You had to buy a catalogue, which cost, I think it was £10. I have one someplace actually. I think it was £10 at the time of the auction, which was a lot of money that time. As I said, they took 6 days, so they had every facility. They laid on toilets, they laid on everything that you could imagine. They had a bar, they had a restaurant. As I say, RT was there. They did a documentary on it. There was a lot of people around. There was as many people maybe as there would have been for the October Fair week in Ballinasloe. It was a major event.
What happened to what wasn't sold?
Well, everything was sold really. Everything had its price, but if it wasn't making the price, they were sold. Anything that wasn't sold was personal belongings or things that wasn't supposed to be sold, which was taken away by the owners, Luke and Audrey Dillon Mahan.
Papers were sent to the National Library.
The papers are all the history of Clonbrock, and any documentation they would have on Clonbrock was given to the National Library at the time. There is a collection of photos which was compiled by some of the ladies in Clonbrock years back. They had a special photograph house. They were very interested in photography. That's also in the National Library. Actually, there was an exhibition of those photographs maybe 20 years ago in the library in Ballinasloe. All that stuff is to be had anyway in the National Library. Going back to the auction, Paddy Kelly, who I mentioned earlier, and myself, as I said, were the two last people to leave the place. We had to look after everybody. We had to look after all the security people or whatever, and it was a very exciting time for us. We were sort of treated like royalty at the time, really, because we had good fun, and we were there for about, I suppose, 3 weeks to a month after the main auction, because there was other things to be taken care of. We actually cleared the last room in the house in Clonbrock. We also were there for the farmyard implements sale, and they sold off. They had a major auction of cattle in the farmyard at the time as well. So we had to be there for that. So it was about, I suppose, 3 weeks to a month after the main auction that we left.
When did the family leave?
Mr. Dillon and his wife Audrey left about 2 months before the auction. They used to come back some days before the auction. They stayed there an odd night, but mainly they moved out about 2 months before the auction, and they had all their own belongings and what they wanted to take gone at that stage. They just, I suppose, they didn't think it was appropriate to be there at the time, and it was a very sad parting for them at that time.
Luke Mahan Dillon was interviewed by Patrick Gallagher in that programme.
Yes,
we saw it.
Yes, he was. Yes, and he's actually his son and his daughter. His daughter actually lives in Kilconnon at the moment. She's married to a guy called George Gossip, and they live in Ballinderry House in Kilconnell. His son Robin, I'm not sure where he is. He used to be down in Wicklow. He had a fish farm down there, but I'm not sure where he is now. Audrey, his wife, is still alive. She lives over in Mycullen, the other side of Galway. She's a very old lady. The last I heard from her was at the time her husband died, Luke, that she was in fairly good health.
Goodness me, we might try and get an interview there
Mm-hmm.
sometime.
Yes.